If. Have you ever noticed how a bully never picks a fight with someone stronger than them? They always seek out someone they think they can overpower. If. Narcissism works exactly the same way. It is not a sign of strength. It is a mask that hides weakness. Narcissism is a bully searching for an opponent. If, and that opponent is often the kind-hearted, empathetic, and genuine people among us. The irony is, if narcissists are not drawn to your weakness, they are drawn to your strength. They feed on your kindness, your patience, your compassion. If, because those qualities make you easy to manipulate. But here's the truth I want you to carry with you. Today, your strength is not their playground. If, and your compassion is not their weapon. You can choose to rise above the bully. You can choose to stop being their opponent. If, and when you stop playing their game, you win the battle they never expected to lose. Have you ever seen a fire burn out on its own when it runs out of fuel? It doesn't matter how fierce the flames once were without oxygen, the fire cannot survive. A narcissist functions in the exact same way. If their strength does not come from within, it comes from outside. It comes from the attention they steal, the emotions they trigger, and the reactions they provoke. They are not fueled by reality. They are fueled by your reaction to their version of reality. Think about it. If, imagine you are walking down the street and a child suddenly shouts at you in anger, calling you names. At first, it might shock you, maybe even irritate you. But very quickly, you realize it's just a child trying to get your attention. You smile, you walk away, and you don't lose sleep over it. Why? If. Because you understand that their words have no real weight. It is only your reaction that could have given them power. In the same way, if narcissists are like emotional children, shouting, mocking, provoking, because they crave the reaction, when you respond with outrage, when you argue, when you let your peace shatter, you are unknowingly giving them exactly what they want: control. Let me share a simple example from daily life. Picture a workplace setting where you're putting in your best effort. You've worked on a project with dedication, and instead of appreciating you, if your narcissistic colleague or boss points out a small mistake and magnifies it, they ignore all the good you've done and attack you on one tiny flaw. At that moment, you feel a rush of emotions. You want to defend yourself, you want to prove them wrong, you want to react, and that is exactly where the trap is set. The more you argue, the more they twist your words, the more they enjoy watching you lose your calm. To them, if your frustration is proof of their power. But what if, instead of reacting, you simply acknowledge their words with calmness, make your correction if needed, and carry on without giving them the satisfaction of an emotional explosion? Suddenly the game ends, the bully loses interest, if the narcissist doesn't get the fuel they were looking for. This principle applies in families too. Many people struggle with narcissistic parents, partners, or relatives. They say something sharp, something unfair, maybe even cruel, and we immediately react, we cry, we argue, we defend. But here's the reality. When someone throws stones into still water, it only creates ripples if the water allows it. If the water stays calm, the stones sink without noise. If you have that power inside you, you can decide whether their words become ripples or whether they disappear into silence. Narcissists do not see the world as it is. They create a distorted version of reality where they are always superior, always right, and everyone else must orbit around them. But their version of reality only stands if others play along. Without your reaction, their illusion collapses. If they are like actors on a stage, they can perform, but without an audience clapping or booing, the show loses meaning. By not reacting, if you take away the applause and the drama, you remind them that their theater no longer has power over you. Now, this doesn't mean ignoring them is always easy. It takes courage, it takes emotional strength, it takes the discipline to pause before you respond. But every time you pause, every time you hold back your reaction, you grow stronger. You begin to reclaim your inner peace. If you begin to recognize that their chaos does not have to become your chaos. In fact, the most powerful people are not those who can argue the loudest or prove every point. They are the ones who can stay calm in the storm. Think of the ocean. If waves crash on the surface, storms rage above, but deep down the ocean remains still and steady. You can be like that. A narcissist may create storms on the surface, but deep inside you can choose peace. Here's another daily life scenario. Suppose you're in a family dinner and a narcissistic relative tries to embarrass you with a sarcastic comment in front of everyone. If the old version of you might have defended yourself instantly, getting into a verbal battle. But the wiser version of you smiles, perhaps even agrees lightly, if, and then shifts the conversation in another direction. The room moves on, the tension dissolves, and the narcissist sits silently, realizing they didn't get the drama they were craving. That is victory, not because you silenced them with force, but because you denied them the reaction they needed. Remember, this reality is neutral. Reality is what it is. But narcissists bend it, exaggerate it, and distort it to trigger you. And if you let them, you become a character in their story. The way out is simple but powerful. Stop reacting. Respond with calmness, or choose not to respond at all. The less you react, the weaker they become. The truth is, a narcissist without your reaction is like a phone without battery, a fire without fuel, a stage without an audience. They cannot survive without the energy you give them. So the next time you face their manipulation, remind yourself, this is just noise. My peace is my choice. My silence is my strength. When you master this, something beautiful happens. You stop being their opponent. You stop being their fuel. You rise above the game. And when you rise above, you finally discover a new freedom. If the freedom to live your life without being controlled by someone else's chaos. When we hear the word boundaries, many people misunderstand it. If they think boundaries are walls, barriers that isolate us, or signs of selfishness. But boundaries are not about shutting people out. They are about protecting the best parts of yourself. They are shields, not cages. And when it comes to dealing with narcissists, if boundaries become your greatest weapon of strength, not weakness, a narcissist will test you again and again. They will push limits, question your decisions, intrude into your private space, and sometimes even ridicule your values. Why? Because every time you bend, every time you compromise what matters to you, if they feel a sense of control, boundaries are the line where their control stops and your respect for yourself begins. Without boundaries, if you become their playground, with boundaries, you become unshakable. Let's take a simple example from everyday life. Imagine you have a neighbor who keeps borrowing your things, your tools, your books, even your time. At first, you allow it because you are kind and helpful. But soon they begin to expect it. If one day you say no, they act offended as if you have done something wrong. A narcissist behaves exactly like that neighbor. The more you give without limits, the more they take. And if you finally draw a line, they try to guilt you into believing you're the problem. But when you stand firm, when you say with calm confidence, I cannot allow that, you begin to reclaim your peace. Boundaries are not about being rude or harsh. They are about being clear. Think about traffic signals. They are not meant to punish drivers. They are meant to protect everyone on the road. Without them, there would be chaos. In relationships, your boundaries serve the same purpose. They protect your emotional well-being and keep the relationship healthy. Narcissists may dislike those boundaries, but that's not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to protect your mental and emotional health. Let me give you another scenario. Suppose you have a narcissistic friend who constantly calls you late at night, venting, complaining, and draining your energy. At first you pick up because you want to be supportive, but night after night you lose sleep, and during the day you feel exhausted. If you notice your own health and peace are being sacrificed, a boundary here might sound like this: I care about you, but I cannot take calls after 10 p.m. If you need to talk, let's connect during the day. At first, they might react angrily or accuse you of being selfish. But that reaction only proves how much they relied on your lack of boundaries. And when you enforce that line consistently, you take your life back. Boundaries are a reflection of self-respect. Imagine you own a beautiful home. Would you leave your doors wide open, allowing anyone to walk in, take what they want, and leave a mess behind? Of course not. You lock your doors, not because you hate people, but because you value your safety, your mind, your emotions, your peace. They're your inner home. Boundaries are the locks on those doors. Without them, anyone can enter and create chaos. With them, you choose who deserves to be there and who does not. The challenge is narcissists do not like hearing no. They may guilt trip you, they may mock you, or they may even try to punish you for setting limits. But here's the truth: their reaction is not a sign that your boundary is wrong. Their reaction is proof that your boundary is working. When someone gets angry at you for protecting your peace, If it reveals their intention was never to respect you, it was to use you. Here's something important to remember. Boundaries are not just for others, if they are also for yourself. Sometimes the hardest part is not saying no to the narcissist. It's saying yes to yourself. If it's reminding yourself that your time matters, your energy matters, your health matters. Every time you set a boundary, you affirm your own worth. If you say to yourself, I deserve respect, I deserve peace, I deserve balance. Think of a garden. If you don't put a fence around it, animals may come in and destroy the plants you worked so hard to grow. The fence doesn't stop the garden from blooming. It allows it to bloom freely. If, without being destroyed, your boundaries are that fence, they don't stop you from loving, from caring, or from giving. If they simply ensure that your love and care are not exploited. One of the greatest gifts boundaries give you is clarity. Without them, if relationships become confusing, you don't know where you end and the other person begins. With them, the relationship becomes clear. This is what I can allow and this is what I cannot. And that clarity brings peace. So how do you begin? Start small. Say no when you mean no. Speak up when something feels wrong. Protect your time, protect your space, protect your values. If, don't wait till you're drained to take action. Decide now that you will no longer allow anyone, especially a narcissist, to cross the lines that keep you safe. Every time you set a boundary, you teach others how to treat you. More importantly, you teach yourself how much you value your own well-being. Boundaries are not selfish. Boundaries are self-care. Boundaries are dignity in action. If, and here is the ultimate truth, a narcissist may resist your boundaries, but they cannot destroy them unless you let them. Their power ends where your boundary begins. When you stand strong, calm, and firm, you send the message, my kindness is not weakness. My compassion is not yours to control. I respect myself, and that respect will not be compromised. Boundaries are not about keeping people out. If they are about keeping yourself intact, they are your shield in the battle against manipulation. And when you carry that shield with courage, no narcissist can truly overpower you. One of the hardest lessons in life is realizing that not every battle is worth fighting, and not every person deserves your energy. With narcissists, this truth becomes even more powerful. They want you caught in their drama, tangled in their web. If constantly reacting, constantly defending, constantly needing to prove yourself. But here's the secret: the moment you detach, you win. Detachment is not running away. Detachment is not weakness. Detachment is wisdom, strength, and the ultimate freedom. It is saying, I will not give you the keys to my peace anymore. If detachment doesn't mean you stop caring about life or people, it means you stop being controlled by those who thrive on chaos. Think about a puppet show. If the puppet only moves when the strings are pulled, if you cut those strings, the puppet no longer dances for someone else's entertainment. Narcissists want to hold those strings in your life. They want to pull your emotions, your anger, your joy, even your sadness. But when you detach, if you cut those strings, you stop being their puppet. And in that moment, the narcissist loses the power they believed they had over you. If, let's take a simple everyday example. Imagine someone throws an insult at you in public. Normally, the instinct is to react, defend yourself, argue back, or show anger. But what happens if you remain calm, smile slightly, and walk away as if their words carried no weight? The person who insulted you is left confused. They expected fire, but you gave them water. They expected drama, but you gave them silence. That is detachment in action. The power is no longer theirs, it is yours. If detachment is especially important in relationships with narcissists because they crave validation, they want you to seek their approval. If to prove yourself to them, to constantly dance to their tune. But the day you stop chasing their validation is the day you become free. If you no longer live under the shadow of their approval, you no longer shrink when they criticize you or glow only when they praise you, you create your own light, your own peace independent of them. Here's another example from daily life. If, imagine a workplace where a narcissistic colleague constantly tries to outshine you, belittle your contributions, or make you feel inferior. If, instead of competing with them or trying to prove your worth, what if you detach? You do your work with excellence. You focus on your growth. If, and you let their comments roll off you like water off a duck's back. Soon their attempts to provoke you fall flat. If, because your self-worth doesn't come from their words, It comes from your own confidence. That is when you realize detachment is not about ignoring people if it's about refusing to let their behavior dictate your inner world. Sometimes detachment also means walking away. If not every relationship is meant to be carried forever. If someone repeatedly disrespects your boundaries, drains your energy, and attacks your peace, detachment can mean choosing distance. And that distance is not cruelty, it is self-care. If it is the decision to protect your heart from the constant storms of manipulation, just like a sailor doesn't keep sailing into a hurricane, if you don't have to keep sailing into the chaos of a narcissist's world, you have the right to find calmer waters. But detachment is not only physical, it is emotional. You may not always be able to walk away immediately, especially if the narcissist is a family member, if a boss or someone you cannot avoid daily. But emotional detachment means they no longer control how you feel. They can throw words, they can create drama, they can try to shake you, but inside you remain calm. Just like a mountain does not move with the wind, your peace does not move with their noise. Think of your mind as a beautiful, clear lake. When the narcissist throws stones, insults, manipulation, lies, you can either let every stone create ripples, or you can stay so grounded that the stone sinks without disturbing the surface. That is detachment. The lake remains beautiful, still, and untouchable. Detachment also means choosing silence over arguments. Narcissists thrive on conflict. They twist words, shift blame, and confuse you with endless debates. But when you stop engaging in their arguments, you starve their need for drama. Your silence speaks louder than any words could. It says, I refuse to waste my energy on battles that lead nowhere. And that silence, though it may frustrate them, is your greatest victory. If detachment is not about being cold or heartless, it is about valuing your peace more than their chaos. If it is about realizing that your happiness does not depend on how they treat you, it depends on how you treat yourself. And when you detach, if you give yourself the gift of emotional freedom, daily life gives us many opportunities to practice detachment. When a narcissistic partner criticizes your every move, instead of begging for their approval, you remind yourself, I am enough. When a narcissistic boss takes credit for your work, instead of losing yourself in bitterness, you focus on building skills that no one can take away. When a narcissistic relative tries to shame you, instead of defending endlessly, you calmly walk away, protecting your dignity. These are all small victories of detachment, and each one strengthens you. Here's the beautiful truth: when you detach, the narcissist is left powerless. They cannot manipulate you, they cannot provoke you, they cannot control you. It is like taking the wind out of their sails. Their ship of manipulation stops moving while you continue sailing toward peace, freedom, and joy. So remember this: detachment is not defeat, it is victory. It is the moment you stop being their opponent and start being your own protector. The narcissist may shout louder, but their voice no longer echoes in your heart. They may throw stones, but your lake remains still. They may pull strings, but you are no longer their puppet. Detachment is not giving up, it is rising up. It is the moment you take back control of your life, your emotions, and your peace. And in that moment, the narcissist realizes the battle is over, not because you fought harder, but because you chose not to fight at all.